Okay folks, here we go again. This is Andrew with the Ridgeline Division Shops. This time around I'm going to show you how I super detail an HO scale locomotive. What you see in front of you is a Kato SD40-2. There's a BNSF paint scheme that was on it. It's got the snoot nose. I'm going to be building on this unit CP Rail 6066. And I'll show you a picture here. And as you can see from this picture, 6066 is a CP rail unit with the dual flags scheme. It does have a 102-inch snoot nose on it. It's got the Canadian details like the square sand filler hatches and the funny looking pilot plow and the bell hanging over the cab front. It's also got a winterization hatch. It also has some interesting piping on the end of the long hood. So we're going to go ahead and do all of that. And you know what? I just noticed it has a different blower housing than the standard SD40-2. So I'm going to need to get that. Interesting. Okay, so beyond that, I've got the unit here. Going to go ahead and show you how I super detail it. Mentioned the snoot nose. I'm going to have to shorten that down. Now BNSF, and you would assume that this has a BNSF length nose. BNSF has a 132-inch nose, but if I remember what I've read correctly on the internet, Kato didn't put the correct length nose on their unit, so I'm going to go ahead and measure it out. I believe that Union Pacific's nose was 116 inches, and this is 1.33, maybe 1.34 inches, which translates out to, let's say it's 1.34 inches times 87, since that's our scale. It's about 116 inches. So this is a Union Pacific length nose, and I need to get it down to 102 inches, which means that I'm taking out about 14 inches divided by 87, about 0.15, 0.16 inches. So I'll make those cuts and I'll show you how I do it. Beyond that, a lot of details to add. I already mentioned the sand filler housings, got the pilot details that are going to go on. I have to relocate the horn to about here, and it's kind of positioned at an angle, so that should be interesting. What else? Lift rings across the top, a couple of pilot details. I think the anti-climbers need to be changed as well. So I'm gonna get to it, and I will show you how I do it as we go. So thanks for watching, and here we go. Alright, so I always start a super detailing project by cutting and drilling. So I'll go ahead and pop that shell off. And start by, we'll drill out the holes for the roof details, the lift rings. I'm not going to need those, alright? And one other thing that I do is, since I'm going to be replacing this sand filler housing, even if I were to put in a new round one, I'd do it this way. I like to drill a hole into the center of it, and then once I've drilled that hole, sand the details down, and then drill a larger and larger hole until whatever part I'm replacing it with fits into there. Other thing I have to do is I'm going to be sanding off these details. I guess they used to be class lights or whatever. 6066 doesn't have those details on it, so sand that off, and then I have to sand down across the front to put the headlight housing on there. What else? Like I said, I will drill into these little details that are here on the Kato shell to put in the lift rings, and this light needs to come off from the back so I can replace it with a single light. Let me take a look at some pictures of the back of the unit, see if I can find one here. Still looking. Oh, okay, here we go. Yeah, it looks like 6066 also does not have these class lights and these details here. So I'll have to take those off, take this the twin setup out and put in a single setup. Now it does look like those pipes that kind of fit along here and go over to the winterization hatch kind of mount to where those should be. So I'll probably use those as a point of reference. So yeah, we'll go ahead and do that. I also noticed that the exhaust stack was a little bit different on the prototype as it is on this model. So I'll have to look into that and probably order the appropriate part to fit that on there. And like I said, this housing, it does have the angled housing from I guess like the SD50 and SD60 as opposed to this rounded one. So I will need to get that part as well and replace it. So gonna get started, and here we go. Okay, for any of you that were wondering what I just did, I took some .030 inch styrene rod and plugged it into the openings where the original horn was, the factory horn was. And what I did was cut it down short. I'll end up gluing that in and then sanding it down smooth, so that it just results in a cleaner finish when you fill in a hole like that, so you don't end up with any sinking with the filler and whatnot. So yeah, just did that, and back to it. Okay, now my camera battery ran out as I was showing you that sanding on the nose. So while waiting for it to recharge, I went ahead and cleaned up the seam lines along the ends of the edges of the rest of the model. You see there, I took out those seam lines, sanded them down. Also worked on the back, the long hood end a little bit. There are essentially no details, no number boards or anything on the back of the prototype, so I went ahead and installed the number boards, and I'll be sanding that smooth. Also cut off the dual lights in the back, so took care of that. The next step from here is, the next major thing I have to do is cut the nose shorter. So I'll probably go ahead and measure out the cut that I'm going to make, and then go ahead and let this soak in some isopropyl alcohol to get the remaining paint off of it. So I'll go ahead and measure out those cuts and then strip it off, and we'll come back. Still need to figure out what to do with the exhaust and the blower here. More than likely I'll have to order replacement parts and get those and swap those out, replace them. So yeah, we'll get to it. I'll strip this off and we'll come back after that. And there it is, stripped down. You know, left it for a couple hours in some 91% and most of the paint came off. One thing with Kato units is the paint comes off in layers because the paint on the plastic comes off fairly easily, but the paint that's under another layer of paint is kind of protected from the isopropyl, so you have to get the other paint off first before the lower level comes off, etc., etc. So you just got to keep working at it, but it will come off. This is pretty much what you'll come out with. The plastic does get stained by the paint, but it doesn't present an issue because it doesn't have a texture to it. So once you paint over it, it'll be pretty smooth. Want to go ahead and show you this cut that I added. Let me disassemble and show you this cut that I did into the nose. You see it right there. Those are the two lines. They are 2 lines there and 2 lines there. They are 0.17 inch apart, and I cut those in at an ever so slight angle to the nose so that it's not totally square. But yeah, I'm gonna cut that section out, reattach it. And I've also started to sand down the, I don't know if you can see that in the light, sand down the recess for the headlights there because I have to move the headlights down from the cab to the nose. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I found out there is a Canadian style exhaust stack which I've ordered. So I have to wait for that, and I've also ordered the angled blower housing, so I have to wait for that as well. So I'm going to cut the nose and do that, and while I'm waiting for those parts, I'm going to call this part 1. And as soon as those come in, hopefully they're here in the next couple days, I will jump on that and get the project finished, but I will do that in part 2. So thanks for watching so far. Let me know if you have any questions, and I will see you in the next film.